Imane Khelif, if I pronounced that correctly. She is competing as a woman in female boxing. And to my understanding, I mean, I haven't checked and I don't plan to, from my understanding, she was born with a vagina at birth, assigned female in her country. It wasn't like she was some trans person that, that as a 20-year-old mediocre male boxer, I decide I want to, beat up women. It wasn't the case. She was born with, from my understanding, with female genitalia, and then turned out to find out later after she, grew up, realized she got XY chromosomes. So she built like a man because, at the DNA level, she got male DNA, but she has female genitals, and like, here's the thing, I can't really blame her because, who knows your chromosomes, right? I mean, I never checked my chromosomes. I'm assuming I'm XY. I never checked it, right? So she might have grown up just thinking that she's a very tough masculine woman, and it makes sense she would do sports, right? And then all of a sudden, by the time you're really good, you realize the reason that you've been, so good is that, you're, XY and that, you have a lot of characteristics of a man and you're in there beating up women. And that's kind of a tough thing. And the reason I think it's interesting for conservatives, because conservatives, they'll say, oh, well, what's a woman? It's like, well, these people are outraged that she's in the Olympics fighting women, but it's like, is that a woman? Right. And to me, like, her specific example is why that's a hard question to answer. Like, it's hard. If she got a vagina, but she, got shoulders and testosterone like us and bone density and oxygen levels and muscle mass, like all of that is male, but she got female genitals. What is she? Right. And I think that is, I think that's a perfect example of why it's a hard question to answer.
I understand, but I don't like the separation or the confusion that it could cause, because to me, in most cases, again, I'm no expert, but I would imagine that.
I just want to say, the fact that you had to say that you're no expert means that this is a complicated question. It's much more complicated than it looks.
I can't. But it's. I'm certainly no expert in like genetics and things of that nature. So like I can't speak from that term, but I'm going to speak from a societal utility and like a historical precedence perspective. And I'm going to also like speak in terms of the average relative to scenarios in which case genetics may play a huge factor. So like, let's say for instance, you have Brock Lesnar, and like we all know who Brock Lesnar is, used to play in the NFL, then went to the WWE, then went to UFC, big, bulky dude.
Huge.
If you see his daughter looks exactly like him. Exactly like him. If I'm not lying.
I'm sorry. I feel sorry for him.
Please, like, and just if you can, like, even while we're talking, if you can Google a picture of Brock Lesnar's daughter, like, then like you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. You're gonna be like, man, like this huge. I'm talking like, and if she has 2 X chromosomes and she has the same genitalia as Imane Khelif, I hope I'm not messing her name up, but I probably am. I'm okay with them 2 fighting, and I think they're both women. And I think for the context of like how society would imagine women, I think it's without murkying the waters, because like just like you said, we're not going to know our chromosomes unless we're each running around getting a really deep test done or blood test done to let us know. I think we're basically going off of like the same thing that separates us in terms of restrooms. Like we're going based off of our genitalia and our reproductive systems, and that's a more societal utility perspective. And I think once you start getting into the nuances and you start like, oh, well, then a woman is not only X and X, 2X chromosomes. Now it can be 2X, right? There you go.
Yeah, she got the muscles on her. She's
There
strong.
you go. There you go. And it's just like, even to the point where like even like her chest doesn't even look as like, you know what I mean? Like it looks
Yeah,
like
I mean, I don't want to talk negatively about it, but yeah,
right,
she looks strong
right,
for sure.
right. And it's just like if she was to go against an
Imane
Amon,
Khelif.
like, you know, I think that's fair. I think something like that, and I would classify both of those as women. But I don't like it, and that's an expert talking about the conditions that like in which would be drawn to classify a woman. But I don't like murking the waters like that. I think because then at that point, and maybe it's
Well,
necessary. It
what
could
you're
be
saying is you would let her fight, and then you'd have the same scandal, right?
yes, I would let her fight. She's a woman. From my definition, if she has two X chromosomes, she has the
She don't got X2X chromosomes. She got XY.
I will, but she has the female genitalia,
Right. That's the understanding that we have. Yeah.
and with that female, she can reproduce. She's a woman. She's a woman.
I don't know if she can reproduce. I don't know how well her stuff works, but some women can reproduce, right? So anyway, like to me, this is why it's a hard conversation, because here's what I'll say: it's not fair. So it's not fair. Like from my perspective, for her to be fighting, natural women with XY chromosome built like us. Iman is built like you and me. Like if you look at the body, like besides the genital, that's one of us, besides that, right? So it's like to fight a woman, that ain't really fair.
But there are women built like that, though.
But the question is, not like that, though.
I mean, I just like Brock, if you really like if we got some women, like if you go to the WNBA,
there's some strong women. Women, but that'll make you a man, though. That make you a strong woman.
It
where
does.
Like Khelif is at a DNA level manly in a way that none of those other women are, and that it makes it unfair. So here's what I'll say. I've spoken with two different conservatives that landed on two different sides of the issue. One conservative agreed with you. He said, if it has female genitals, then I don't really care about anything else. I ain't looking into the structure or anything like that. If you got the parts, you're a woman, and that's the advantage you have. That's the advantage you have. But he defines woman as you have a vagina, right? I talked to another conservative, and this is one of the conservatives that was, because by default, most people are going to be outraged when they first see it. It's like, you got this, what they basically think of as a trans person, even though she didn't change. That's just kind of how she was born. What they think of is like, okay, you got this trans man basically beating up women, and everyone reacts negatively. But when you actually talk to him, again, that one conservative said, hey, if she has a vagina, then, I'm fine with her competing. I talked to another conservative, and he said that it's the chromosomes, just like you said initially. Your first answer was an XX, person, right? That was his answer. He said if it's XX chromosomes, then it's a woman, and even if the genitalia don't match. And I said something similar. I said like, so if Dwayne The Rock Johnson had XX chromosomes and nobody knew, does that mean he, even with male genitalia, does that mean that he should go fight women, right? And he was like, well, I don't think that would happen. And it's like, well, here's the thing: like these things don't happen often.
Right.
But when you're looking at the extremes, if you're looking at the toughest woman in the world, which the Olympics are going to tell you, the toughest woman in the world might be somewhere on that spectrum. So here's my take on it. I don't, and this is the take from the original scientist. Get out of this gender binary or this sex binary. Just get rid of it, right? Like, because to me, she's not a woman. Like, because Imane is not like my mom. It ain't like your mom or not. Like Imane, Khelif is different than them. But Imane ain't really like us either, because she got a vagina, right? So like, it ain't like my mom, and it ain't like me. It ain't a man or woman in my perspective. It's just unique. It's just a unique person that is somewhere in the middle. And like, here's a good analogy that I like anyway. It's like, imagine like your job is to sort zeros and ones. It's going to give a list of things coming in. Zeros on the left, ones on the right, right? And you just like, all right, zero left, one right, zero left, one right. You do that over and over again, and then eventually you get 0.75 comes through, and you're like 0.75, And you're like, what bucket do I put 0.75 in? And it's like some people are gonna be like, well, round it up, just call it a 1. And other people are gonna be like, it ain't 1, make it a 0. And I'm like, it ain't 1 or 0. It's 0.75, and that's just what it is. It ain't 1, it ain't 0, it's 0.75. But if we're gonna be more accurate, to expand on that analogy here, it's not just zeros and ones that you're sorting, right? It's not just zeros and ones. Because like, and then this goes back to the bigger point that the woman was making in the video, the science I'm talking about. She was like, there's a bunch of characteristics that are associated with being a man or being a male. And there's certain characteristics associated with being a female. And, you know, chromosomes, genitalia are just 2 characteristics, right? You also have differences in bone density. You have differences in muscle mass. You have differences in hormone levels like testosterone and estrogen and oxygen retention, right? All of these characteristics, it's not just genitalia, it's not just chromosomes. And honestly, the chromosomes are probably the least important thing. The only thing the chromosomes do is they're only important because they impact everything else, right? Because they impact your genitalia, they impact your bone density, your muscle mass. So really, like, those instructions only have, like, the instructions themselves only matter insofar as they express themselves in a real characteristic, right? So it's like she's basically saying there's all these characteristics that, you know, are traditionally male or traditionally female, and most men are going to be, you know, have one set of values for all of those characteristics. Again, we're talking about a bunch of different characteristics that men have, and then females are going to have values close to the same thing for, you know, for their set, you know, of those same characteristics. But you might have a man who, you know, XY with, you know, the right genitals and everything, but maybe he's just a little lower on testosterone. Maybe he doesn't grow that much facial hair. Maybe he's a little weaker, you know, or maybe, you know, his bone density is low or whatever. Now that person, he's still like, you know, a man, you know, he still gets going into the male category, but instead of a 1, maybe he's like 0.99, you know, 0.98. But, you know, we call him a 1, put him over there. You maybe got a woman who's incredibly high in testosterone. Right. You know, I'm not trying to say anything negative. Maybe you got like a Serena Williams. Serena's strong, right? Yep. She might be, you know, instead of 0, maybe she like 0.1 or something, right? You know, maybe not that far, 0.01. But the point is, like, even the zeros and ones aren't zeros or ones. Like, all of us have a unique values for all of these characteristics. Somebody might be a little over 1, right? Maybe your testosterone is super high and bone density is very strong or whatever, right? So like we're used to all these values being right around 1 and right around 0, and we can do our 1 and 0 sorting with relative ease. You know, we've been doing this all our lives, but when you get 0.75 comes in, that's tough.